You're just the guy who pays the bills, not my real dad." My stepdaughter actually rolled her eyes when she said that. I didn't even flinch. I just gave her a slow nod. Later, when her fancy college acceptance letter came, I simply handed it back to her and said, "Then have your real dad handle the tuition." That smug look she always had. It vanished instantly. And just like that, so did her future plans. I'm a 52-year-old man, and my 8-year marriage started falling apart over a single college acceptance letter. My stepdaughter was 17. I'd been a stable part of her life since she was 9. Her biological father, the deadbeat, had walked out when she was 6 and hadn't sent a single cent in child support since. But last Tuesday, that was the day everything changed forever. I was sitting at the kitchen table, running through the household budget like I always do, when she walked in after school. She had that major attitude she'd been perfecting lately. I asked her to take out the trash, which she'd been ignoring for 3 whole days. She stopped dead, performed this incredibly theatrical eye roll, and delivered the words that are going to haunt our entire relationship. She told me I was just the guy who paid the bills, not her real dad, and because of that, I couldn't tell her what to do. Man, those words felt like a punch to the gut. 8 years of school plays, soccer games, birthday parties, and tucking her into bed, all reduced to nothing but a monthly bank statement. My chest tightened up, but somehow, I managed to keep my face completely neutral. I just nodded slowly and agreed with her. I told her, "You know what? You are absolutely right." Then I went right back to my budget spreadsheet. She looked genuinely surprised by how calm I was. She probably expected a huge fight or for me to be instantly wounded. Instead, I just started running calculations in my head. I flashed through 8 years of private school tuition, orthodontics, expensive summer camps, music lessons, and all those countless other costs. That college fund I'd been growing for her since she was 10, it suddenly felt different, heavy in my hands. My wife wasn't home that night. She was working late again at her marketing gig. My stepdaughter stomped off to her room, probably feeling like she'd won some big victory. I spent the entire night researching something I never thought I'd have to look up: the legal obligations of step-parents when it comes to financial support. The answer was absolutely crystal clear. I had zero legal obligation to support her financially once she turned 18. None at all. Her biological father, however, was still legally responsible for child support and could be forced to pay for college expenses. I bookmarked a bunch of legal websites and printed out all the relevant details. 3 days later, the envelope arrived. I immediately recognized the university logo. It was that expensive private college she'd been talking about since sophomore year. A thick envelope meant she was accepted, and there was probably a big financial aid package, but we'd still be on the hook for about 30 grand a year. When she heard the mail truck, she practically flew down the stairs, vibrating with excitement. I was sitting at the same kitchen table, the unopened letter next to my coffee. She lunged for it, hands shaking, and I gently slid it toward her. She tore the thing open with the pure, unadulterated enthusiasm of someone whose entire future is unfolding before them. Her scream of joy echoed through the house. She was in. Her dream school wanted her. Then she got to the financial aid information. Her excitement faded a bit as she processed the numbers, calculating how much this education would actually cost. She looked up at me, waiting for me to reassure her that we would figure it out, just like we always did. I took a sip of my coffee and offered a simple congratulations on the acceptance. Then, I casually mentioned that since she'd made my role in her life so clear, she should probably contact her real father about handling the tuition expenses. After all, I was just the guy who paid the bills. I shouldn't be making decisions about her education, right? The color literally drained from her face. She started stammering, trying to say she didn't mean what she'd said the other day, that she was just upset about chores. I just nodded calmly and suggested she call her biological father to discuss funding. His number was on her mom's phone if she needed it. She tried a different tactic, telling me I was being petty and that this was her whole future we were discussing. I agreed completely. It was her future, and her real father should be the one investing in it. I'd clearly been overstepping my boundaries as the billing guy. My wife got home 20 minutes later and found our daughter sobbing hysterically at the kitchen table, the acceptance letter scattered among crumpled tissues and printed financial forms. The explanation poured out between sobs. How she'd said something stupid, how I was refusing to pay for college, how her dreams were just crashing down around her. My wife's first reaction was pure anger directed straight at me. She wanted to know how I could be so cruel over a few angry words from a teenager. I let her vent for several minutes. Then, I calmly explained that our daughter had made her feelings about my role very clear. I was simply honoring her wishes by stepping back from parental responsibilities I had no right to assume. I pulled out my phone and showed my wife the legal research I'd done. Step-parents don't have to pay for college. Her biological father, however, could absolutely be pursued for educational expenses through the courts. I suggested we start there instead of automatically assuming I should cover costs for someone else's child. The conversation immediately grew heated. My wife accused me of being vindictive, of punishing a child for speaking without thinking. I countered that our daughter was nearly 18, old enough to understand the consequences of her words and actions. If I was truly just a financial provider with no parental authority, then my financial obligations needed to reflect that incredibly limited role. Period. My stepdaughter tried to apologize multiple times over the next few days, each time more desperate than the last. She swore she hadn't meant it, that I was just like a real father, that she was sorry for being disrespectful. I listened patiently and thanked her for the apologies, but I told her her initial statement had been a real eye-opener about our actual relationship. My wife tried to negotiate. What if our daughter did a bunch of extra chores? What if she maintained a perfect GPA or got a part-time job to contribute? I pointed out that those were things we should expect as basic responsibilities anyway. They didn't change the fundamental dynamic our daughter had articulated so clearly. The biological father? He proved to be exactly as useless as expected. When my wife contacted him about college expenses, he immediately claimed financial hardship and told her to apply for more loans. Even though his monthly income from his construction job could easily support child support payments, he'd successfully avoided them for over a decade. My wife looked into legal options for pursuing back child support and college contributions, but the process would take years, and there was no guarantee we'd collect anything. Meanwhile, enrollment deposits were due in a few weeks, and we'd already missed deadlines for alternative financial aid applications. Our daughter watched her friends receive their final college decisions and start making enrollment plans. She saw the social media posts about campus visits and dorm assignments with mounting desperation. The thought of potentially attending community college instead of her dream school was finally sinking in. I stuck to my position for weeks with complete, unwavering consistency. Every conversation about college money was redirected straight to her biological father's responsibilities. When she finally broke down crying and begged me to change my mind, I gently reminded her again. I was just the guy who paid the bills, not someone who should be making important decisions about her education. The psychological impact on her was enormous. For years, she'd taken my financial support for granted while keeping an emotional distance, trying to protect her fantasy loyalty to an absent father. My withdrawal of support forced her to face reality for the very first time. Her mother got more and more frustrated with my stance, accusing me of destroying our family over some teenage drama. I explained that our daughter hadn't destroyed anything. She simply clarified what our relationship was. I was respecting her boundaries by not overstepping my role as a non-parent. 3 weeks before the deadline, our daughter had what I can only describe as a total meltdown. She screamed that she hated her biological father, hated the situation, and finally admitted that I'd been more of a father to her than he'd ever been. But she still insisted that my response was cruel and completely disproportionate to her offense. I acknowledged her pain, but explained that actions have consequences, even for 17-year-olds who think they can redefine family relationships whenever it's convenient for them. She made a choice about my role, and I was honoring it by behaving accordingly. My wife eventually suggested family counseling to try and work through all of this. I agreed. I was genuinely curious to hear a professional perspective. Our first session was incredibly enlightening. Our daughter finally admitted that she had been deliberately hurtful because she was angry about chores and wanted to wound me emotionally. The counselor helped us explore the complex dynamics of blended families and step-parent relationships. Our daughter acknowledged that she had taken my support for granted while maintaining those artificial boundaries that served her needs but weren't fair to me as a person. However, I made it absolutely clear, understanding her motivation did not obligate me to resume financial support. She had shown that she viewed me as a resource rather than a parent, and resources can be withdrawn when they're no longer appreciated or needed. The counselor suggested my response, while understandable, might be disproportionate to the offense. I politely disagreed. I explained this wasn't about punishment. It was about establishing appropriate boundaries based on our actual relationship, not my assumptions about what it should be. As the enrollment deadlines got closer, our daughter started exploring alternatives. Community college for 2 years, then transferring to a state school, massive student loans that would burden her for decades, part-time work to help pay for expenses. The bright future she'd envisioned was dissolving into a much harsher reality. Her friends' parents started asking nosy questions about our college plans, creating social embarrassment that compounded her stress. She had been bragging for months about her acceptance to this expensive college, never imagining the funding would actually become an issue in our household. My wife made one last-ditch effort at negotiation, offering to take on extra work to help cover the costs. I explained that this wasn't about our financial capacity as a family. It was about responsibility and respect. Our daughter defined the relationship, and I was simply living within those definitions. 2 days before the final enrollment deadline, she came to me for her final, desperate plea. She admitted what she'd said was wrong, hurtful, and unfair. She admitted I'd been a better father than her biological dad ever was. She promised she'd never take my support for granted again and begged me to change my position. I listened to every single word. Then I asked her one simple question. If the situation were reversed, if I had told her she wasn't really my daughter and was just someone living in my house, would she feel obligated to support me financially in my old age? The question hung in the air like smoke. She couldn't answer. That was all the answer I needed. Update 1. The enrollment deadline passed 3 months ago. My stepdaughter is now attending community college and working part-time at a retail store. The change in our household dynamic has been remarkable and uncomfortable in equal measure. She treats me with a respect that feels a little artificial, but it's a huge step forward from her previous attitude. Every conversation is carefully measured now, like she's walking through a minefield of potential consequences. The easy familiarity we once shared has been replaced by this polite formality, a constant, harsh reminder of how much things have changed. My wife has struggled more than anyone expected. She blamed me initially for destroying our family, but some recent developments have started to shift her perspective. Our daughter's biological father popped up again, promising to help with college now that she was actually enrolled somewhere. His promises were, predictably, completely worthless. After 2 months of assurances about future financial support, he disappeared again the moment she asked for actual money. This pattern of abandonment played out right in front of our daughter for the first time in years, and watching her hopes completely crumble was genuinely painful. The community college experience has been sobering for her. Most of her high school friends moved away to their dream schools, and her social circle is dramatically smaller. She's studying harder than ever before, knowing that transfer opportunities depend entirely on her perfect academic performance. Her part-time job has introduced her to financial realities she never had to consider before. Earning minimum wage just to pay for textbooks and transportation has given her a whole new appreciation for the countless expenses I'd covered over the years without a word. She actually told me recently that she never realized how much things cost. My wife and I have been going to counseling sessions independently, without our daughter. The therapist helped my wife understand that my reaction wasn't actually about the money. It was about respect and recognition. She's finally started acknowledging that our daughter's words revealed deeper issues in our family dynamic that absolutely had to be addressed. The most surprising development has been her relationship with her biological father. His recent abandonment finally shattered whatever fantasy she'd been holding on to about their connection. She told me last week that she used to imagine he stayed away because of me, but now she finally realizes he simply doesn't care about her. This realization has been devastating, but it was necessary. For years, she maintained loyalty to someone who didn't deserve it while completely taking for granted the person who did. My withdrawal of support forced her to confront these uncomfortable truths about her own life. Our relationship is still strained, but it is slowly evolving. She asks permission before using anything that belongs to me. She thanks me for the meals I cook. She generally acts like a respectful house guest rather than an entitled family member. It's progress, but it's still sad that we've regressed to this level of formality. The financial pressure has motivated her in ways I never anticipated. Her community college grades are perfect, and she's researching scholarship opportunities with the intense dedication of someone whose future hangs in the balance. She's also looking into career paths that don't necessarily require expensive four-year degrees. My wife asked me recently if I felt satisfied with how things turned out. The honest answer is complicated. I'm glad our daughter learned such important lessons about respect and consequences, but I take absolutely no joy in watching her struggle with limitations that could be so easily fixed. The question of whether I'll ever resume financial support remains completely open. She has shown genuine remorse and changed her behavior, but trust rebuilds very slowly after being broken so completely. More importantly, she needs to prove that her new attitude isn't just a strategic ploy for future financial gain. Her mother thinks I'm being too rigid, saying people deserve second chances, especially young people who make mistakes. I don't disagree, but second chances must be earned through consistent behavior over time, not just through apologies motivated by immediate need. Update 2. It's been 6 months since the enrollment deadline passed, and our family dynamics are still changing in unexpected ways. My stepdaughter completed her first community college semester with a perfect GPA while working 25 hours a week. The transformation is truly remarkable to witness. Her relationship with her biological father reached its inevitable conclusion last month. He contacted her, promising Christmas gifts and suggesting they rebuild their relationship. She agreed to meet him for lunch, hoping despite years of disappointment. He never showed up. She came home that afternoon and quietly asked if we could talk. For the first time since our original confrontation, she initiated a serious discussion about our relationship. She apologized not just for those few words, but for years of taking my presence and support for granted while maintaining that emotional distance to protect the fantasy about her absent father. The apology felt profoundly different from her previous attempts. There was no urgency, no immediate need driving it, and no strategic positioning for money. She admitted that she treated me unfairly long before the college incident, using me as a reliable provider while withholding the recognition and respect I truly deserved. My wife has been strongly pushing for reconciliation, arguing that our daughter has absolutely learned her lesson and changed her behavior. My wife isn't wrong about the behavioral changes. Our daughter is respectful, helpful around the house, and genuinely appreciative of everything we do. But behavioral changes motivated by necessity aren't the same as genuine, lasting transformation. The most significant development came 3 weeks ago when she got an acceptance letter to a state university for fall enrollment. Her perfect community college grades and part-time work experience strengthened her application considerably. She was offered partial financial aid but would still need substantial family support to attend. She brought the acceptance letter and financial aid package to me without any expectations or requests. She just wanted to share her achievement with someone who had supported her academic efforts for years. It was a small but meaningful gesture, acknowledging my role in her success without immediately leveraging it for financial gain. I told her I was incredibly proud of her accomplishments and deeply impressed by her resilience in such difficult circumstances. She thanked me and mentioned that she was researching student loan options and scholarship opportunities. No pressure, no manipulation, just information sharing between two adults. My wife saw this interaction as proof that our daughter had learned her lesson and deserved restored support. She argued that continuing to withhold college funding served no constructive purpose now that respect and appreciation were clearly demonstrated. I've been seriously considering her perspective, but I remain cautious about resuming financial support too quickly. Our daughter's current behavior might be genuine personal growth, or it might be sophisticated manipulation designed to get back access to my resources. Time is the only thing that will reveal which interpretation is accurate. The counseling sessions have helped all of us understand the deeper issues beneath our conflict. Our daughter admits that she'd been using her loyalty to her biological father as a weapon against me, punishing me for not being him, while simultaneously expecting me to fulfill all his abandoned responsibilities. She's also acknowledged that her previous attitude was deeply unfair and hurtful. She took my commitment to her welfare for granted while maintaining barriers that prevented any genuine relationship development. She used me as a provider while withholding the emotional recognition that any healthy relationship requires. Last week, she asked if I would consider co-signing student loans for her university education. She made a point of emphasizing that she wasn't asking for direct financial support, just help accessing credit, and that she would be responsible for all repayment. The request showed strategic thinking and respect for my established boundaries. I told her I needed time to consider it. Co-signing loans is a significant financial risk, and it implies restored trust in our relationship. She accepted my response without argument or pressure, demonstrating a patience that would have been completely impossible for her a year ago. The question facing our family now is whether enough genuine change has actually occurred to justify restoring financial support. Our daughter has demonstrated consistent respectful behavior, academic excellence, and a strong work ethic for over 6 months. She's also shown appreciation for past support and realistic expectations about future help. However, I remain concerned that her transformation might be strategic rather than authentic. People can maintain behavioral changes for long periods when motivated by significant potential rewards. Only time will reveal whether her new attitude represents genuine personal growth or sophisticated long-term manipulation. My wife argues that I'm being overly suspicious and that our daughter deserves a chance to rebuild our relationship. She points out that the punitive measures have already achieved their intended purpose. Our daughter understands consequences and demonstrates appropriate respect and appreciation. The decision about co-signing those student loans will probably determine the entire future trajectory of our family relationships. If I agree, it signals forgiveness and restored trust. If I refuse, it suggests permanent damage that behavioral changes cannot repair. Either choice carries significant risks and potential regrets. Our daughter seems to understand the weight of this decision and hasn't pressured me for an answer. She continues focusing on her studies and work, building the independent life that her previous attitude had made necessary. Her patience and maturity in handling this situation might actually be the strongest evidence that her changes are genuine. The irony isn't lost on me. She's become the respectful, appreciative person I always hoped she would be, but only after I withdrew the support that had enabled her previous toxic behavior. Sometimes people need to lose things before they can truly value them. Was Opie justified in enforcing the consequence, or was he just a vindictive stepfather punishing a child for one moment of disrespect? Thanks for watching, and don't subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments.